Meri embraced the spotlight, although she says it nearly blinded her. After a lifetime of being ignored, she was ready to be seen. She wasn't here for any other TV special. TLC was broadcasting its first live reunion of Sister Wives, and Meri sat isolated on a minimalist, high-end set. Steel beams arched overhead, pristine white floors gleamed beneath her feet, and glass walls stretched to the ceiling. It all screamed transparency. But it wasn't just about set design. It was symbolism. There were no shadows for secrets to hide in anymore. And Meri was no more interested in hiding. She sat upright in her chair, not rigid, but with royal composure. It wasn't the attire that provided the presence. It was her subdued fortitude, honed from years of unspoken tolerance and tempered from heartbreak. She didn't look toward the cameras. She didn't have to. They would find their way to her. In contrast, there was pandemonium backstage. Kody was pacing furiously. The network had refused his request to pre-approve the questions. Worse still, Meri had been given her own live segment. She hadn't told him what she would say. That wasn't by accident. She had declined rehearsals and shot down all suggestions for pre-written notes. When the producers asked why, she answered simply, "I'm not here to perform anymore." That's when the pressure really began to build. Kody's fists were clenched in frustration. Robyn sat beside him, still and silent, her hands clenched in her lap as if she was holding herself together. Her face was pale, her expression unreadable. Everything was cracking around her, and she felt the world they'd lived in for so long was crumbling down. And then, the lights came on. The broadcast began. Tension electrified the air. Talia Grant, a fearless, Emmy-nominated journalist known for her relentless interviews, leaned slightly toward Meri. Her voice was measured but piercing. "You told our producers you were ready to say things you've never said before. Something you've carried for years. What is it?" Meri's throat tightened, not with fear, but with gravity. She gave a slow nod. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said, and all changed with that same simple phrase. Talia nodded slowly. "What were you afraid of?" Meri stared into the camera, not at the host, not at the studio audience, but into the eyes of every woman sitting in her living room, holding coffee cups and bearing years of secret scars. "I was afraid of Kody, of his anger, his disappointment, of his power. I was scared of what he'd do if I wasn't the obedient wife, the scapegoat, the one who took the blame so everyone else could appear clean." It went completely silent in the studio. Not even the crew breathed, and then she said it. "Kody is a narcissist. Deep down, we've all known it, but we were afraid to speak it aloud, so we allowed it, for years." Backstage, Kody exploded. "She's crazy. That's slander," he spat. He turned to Robyn, desperate. "She's trying to destroy me." But Robyn said nothing. Her eyes stayed locked on the screen, expression unreadable. Meri didn't bat an eyelash. She was only just beginning. He tears people down and calls it love. He demands loyalty, but gives none in return. He sees independence as a betrayal, and when he can't control you, he punishes you with silence, with withheld affection. Talia leaned in. "You're describing emotional abuse." Meri didn't hesitate. "Yes, I am." But in the studio, it still was. So eerily. Meri went on, shaking her head with the burden of years. "I thought for so long that if I simply did everything just right, he'd love me again. But the fact is, there wasn't a version of me that he loved unless I simply vanished. That silence? It wasn't merely imposing. It was holy. I recall one evening," she whispered. "I had just come back from therapy. I was crying in the car. And when I opened the door, he stared at me and snickered. 'What now, Meri? More drama. That's when I realized I wasn't a human being to him anymore. I was a burden, a joke. Her jaw clenched. And yet, I remained. Because I believed pain equaled loyalty. I believed that was what commitment was. And honestly, I was frightened. Kody rushed towards the curtain, but a producer blocked his path. "You'll have your time," they said sternly. He gestured towards the screen, furious. "You're allowing her to destroy me. She's sharing her story," the producer said, and she wasn't finished. Meri sat even straighter on screen. "I shielded him more than I ever shielded myself. I'm embarrassed about that, but I'm proud, because I escaped." Talia cocked her head. "What happened?" Meri hesitated. For the first time, tears glistened in her eyes. "I stopped vanishing." Meri offered a gentle, genuine smile, the kind that only comes after surviving the unimaginable. And yes, she meant every word she said. Before the episode had even finished, the internet was ablaze. Clips flew around like sparks on parched grass. TikTok content creators sewed her words together into viral clips. Therapists, psychologists, survivors of emotional abuse, all overwhelmed social media with validation messages. Fans cried. Meri's mailbox was filled with letters from women who wrote, "That was me too." But this wasn't a wave. It was a reckoning. Christine took a picture standing in front of a handheld note. "We believe you, Meri." Standing next to her daughters, Janelle stared directly into her phone's camera and left a short but strong statement. "I saw it. We all did." And then, Kody couldn't hide from it anymore. Back in Arizona, his phone would not stop ringing. Calls from relatives, old friends, even religious leaders. The broadcast had broken the silence. That evening, Kody went live on Instagram. His voice strained, his face set in a scowl. "This is a witch hunt," he bellowed. "I gave everything to this family, and now these women, they've joined the mob." The comment section was ablaze within minutes. "This isn't a mob, Kody. It's truth." This is what accountability looks like. He cut off the live stream within 4 minutes. Meri didn't disappear back into the shadows. She came into full light. No longer the neglected first wife of a decaying patriarch, she was now an icon of bravery. She was featured on CBS Mornings and Good Morning America. Her memoir, Unbecoming Mrs. Brown, had pre-orders sell out. In one interview, her voice little more than a whisper, she stated, "A part of me died in that marriage, but I've never felt more alive than I do now." "What do you want women watching to understand?" the interviewer asked. Meri gazed into the camera, firm and resolute. "That you are not crazy. You are not too much. You do not have to shrink to be loved. And silence should never be the price of love." But with one chapter closing, another one of brokenness opened. The most recent installment centered around unimaginable sorrow, the funeral of Garrison Brown. Regardless of where you land on Kody or Janelle, what the viewers witnessed was simply two parents attempting to mourn their precious son. In a very personal gesture, Kody opted to dig the grave himself. He had brought Garrison's remains home on a flight and addressed the cemetery sexton in hushed tones. "May I do this?" Permission having been given, Kody set to digging. And something altered. "This means something to me," he told the cameras. "I don't know why. I just know I have to do this." His brother Tim and another close family friend, Scott, were there as well. They were the two men who had raised Garrison and now were assisting in laying him to rest. Though it was not a traditional grave, just big enough for the urn, Kody wanted to make it deeper, wider. "I want to feel this," he explained. The camera captured a fleeting moment. Humility, mourning, love, raw. When the excavation was completed, Kody sat next to the grave and looked out toward the setting sun. There were tears streaming down his face. "I've never done anything like this before," he said softly. "It's one of the most important things I've ever done. This is where my son lies at rest. I just hope that I'm doing it justice." And the love didn't stop there. Garrison's funeral was small, private, holy. Almost all of his 18 siblings attended. All 4 wives of Kody also attended. Logan and Leon Brown, vague figures from recent seasons, stood silently by relatives. Kody and Janelle's oldest son huddled with his mother, offering her tissues as needed. Even Kody's mother made an appearance, a grandmother grieving her grandson. Garrison was placed in a handmade urn in the form of a Viking ship, a reflection of his fearless nature and fondness for cats. He was interred alongside other relatives at Penrose Cemetery in Byron, Wyoming. Respecting his memory, cameras maintained a distance. A note on screen notified viewers. In moments of silence, loss shouted louder than words ever could. Janelle would eventually say to producers, "I don't even know how to feel. I'm numb. You just keep asking, how did we get here?" Meri chimed in, "It's devastating, truly devastating." At the ceremony, Janelle was spotted leaning her head against Meri's shoulder. The old pain, the old divides, at least for a moment, gave way to common loss. Tim, Kody's brother-in-law, officiated the service clad in one of Garrison's favorite Hawaiian shirts. "He was going to open a small business, Bob's Floral," Kody whispered with a gentle smile. "It was going to be Hawaiian shirts. That was just Garrison. And in that instant, under sorrow, under heartache, there was love. Unadulterated love. The greatest lesson I learned from Garrison's life," Tim continued in his eulogy, voice firm but eyes brimming with tears, "is that we'll always manage to laugh again, to find happiness, even in the darkness." There was a hush that fell over the gathering. "But unless you're a mom who's gone through this," Tim went on, "you'll never even come close to understanding her suffering. And unless you've been a dad in this same second, you'll never even begin to appreciate his remorse." Then came the most intimate moment of all. With a trembling voice as she handed the urn to Kody, Janelle said, "There's something symbolic about this. In me giving him, our son, to you for his final resting ground." They buried the urn in the ground together. Later, Kody talked about a dream he'd had. "Garrison was just sitting on my bed, and it wasn't sad. I asked him, 'Why are you gone, boy?' And he said, 'I'm not. It's not that bad here. Stop playing all that sad music. I'm okay.' And somehow, through the tears, came a smile. Every sibling had their own goodbye. Hunter Brown spoke softly. "He was my playmate. We were bunkmates growing up. I've never known life without him." Peyton Brown gently laid military dog tags in the soil, his tribute to the brother who once dreamed of service and strength. But grief doesn't pause for beauty. It just weaves through it. Meanwhile, plans for the funeral were being made. Kody and Robyn Brown took a day off to spend with their children at the family ranch in Wyoming. The May 18th episode caught them horseback riding, a rare, peaceful moment amidst the tumult. "Kody wasn't a ranch type, I didn't think when I first met him," Robyn remembered in a confession. "He doesn't wear like it, doesn't sound like it. Then I saw him ride a horse for the first time." Her voice stopped on something provocative. "I was just like, whoa. He was in charge, it was rough, sort of sexy to be honest." She laughed and continued, "It's really enjoyable. You know, it's delicious. And fans? They didn't let it slide." During the course of a morning episode about their son, there were quite a few fans who took umbrage with Robyn's tone and timing. To some, it was tone-deaf, distracting, kind of performative. But that wasn't all. Longtime Sister Wives fans have watched the unraveling of Kody's marriages for years. Meri, Christine, Janelle, all walking away. Robyn, the last remaining wife, offered her side during a recent interview. "He was so angry, so hard," she said. "I had to tell him, you're being a moody butthole." She laughed again, but it didn't land. "We worked super hard to survive the breakups," she maintained. "Kody began thinking I was the issue since he no longer had any other wives. But I merely wanted him to be nice to me." She closed with, "I'm proud we survived." But the crowd wasn't cheering. It was evening. Kody and Robyn were sitting outside at their fire pit. He spoke of the time lost to him with Garrison, of how he wished it had turned out differently. Robyn nodded sympathetically, trying to comfort him. The moment could have been cathartic. It wasn't to many viewers, though. "Rehearsed," one viewer commented, "like filming a Hallmark moment rather than grieving their son." Another said, "Why are they focusing on their grief? This was supposed to be about Garrison." And then the garage scene. The camera stayed for only a few seconds, but it was long enough. The audience saw something quietly, yet forcefully. A pan across Kody's workshop. Among the tools, the wood, the dust, was something that evoked a cry. A framed photograph of Garrison against the wall. It wasn't officially stated whether it was deliberate, but the symbolism resonated. "That's how it felt," one fan posted. Like he had turned his back on Garrison even before he died. And that was when the anger of the audience began. Brown's portrait was big, poster size actually, and hung just next to Kody's work area in the garage. For onlookers, its positioning wasn't merely interesting, it was revealing. Most thought it was an intentional editorial decision. Others speculated further that it indicated something deeper regarding Kody's unfinished relationship with his son. When Kody announced on tape that Garrison's portrait would always hang in the garage, fans went wild. Why the garage? Why not in their living room? Their hallway? In a central location in the home? There's plenty of space on the walls of Robyn and Kody's home. So why was the memorial of a deceased child stashed away in a room where Kody often retreats from the emotional burden of his existence? Was it privacy? Or evasion? Perhaps we never will. But to this viewer, it didn't feel authentic. And then, the tone of the episode changed. Again, abruptly. During mourning, in the midst of preparation for funerals, audience members were sidetracked to look at signs Kody had sold to Wyoming businesses years before. The time was disconcerting. Kody had been selling signs years ago before Sister Wives was even on the air. But this wasn't a quiet, introspective trip to a spot of self-improvement. Rather, it was awkward self-promotion. His voice was strangely cheerful as he took his family, thoroughly uninterested looking, through his legacy of plastic and metal signs. Robyn and the children, Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, and Eri, stood respectfully but vacantly. Their faces told of their restlessness. If it weren't so sentimentally out of place, the moment might have been inadvertently humorous. But here, in a memorial for a deceased son, it just didn't feel right. And it was not the first moment that left fans uncomfortable. Robyn went on to call Garrison's ashes their special passenger when they drove off to Wyoming. The characterization was supposed to be sentimental. It was received with discomfort because they remembered. They recalled how, during the final year of his life, Garrison was supposedly at odds with Kody and Robyn. There were reports and footage on the show indicating he wasn't even permitted in their residence. And now, he was a special passenger. It was seen as performative. as a rewriting of history. The contrast was stark. Where Janelle's and Christine's kids shared tearful homages, recollections, and raw sadness over their brother, Robyn's kids never once spoke Garrison's name. Not during interviews, not in discussions. Their silence was deafening. Rather than linking up with loss, the Wyoming vacation for them was a history-filled tour of sightseeing. The family residence was in the town of Kody, named after the notorious showman Buffalo Bill, and the kids learned about frontier myths, not their deceased stepbrother, and fans picked up on it. Garrison passed away. And that was supposed to be goodbye, one fan wrote. Instead, we saw Robyn's children on a school trip. How do you botch that? And then there were Michael, Maddie, and Gabriel, brothers and sisters of Janelle and Christine, who spoke freely. They shared stories of Garrison's laugh, his love of cats, his aspirations to join the military, and how much he was missed. Each sentence vibrated with sorrow. They were there in their sorrow. And maybe that's what still gets under Sister Wives viewers' skin. The discord. The rift between two halves of one family, the half that dwelled with him, loved him in the moment, and lost him, and the half that, even in death, felt emotionally distant. On their visit to Kody, Wyoming, for memorial services for Garrison Brown, Sister Wives viewers were again left stunned, this time by a moment that had the thrill of being both tone-deaf and confusing. While dinner was served, Robyn made the casual comment that Buffalo Bill Kody and her husband, Kody Brown, were similar in that both, as she characterized them, were ladies' men. Her daughters Aurora and Brianna laughed. And then, in a weird aside of self-humiliation or denial, Kody declared, contrarily to his 4 marriages, that he wasn't a women guy. It may have been intended as humor, but against the background of their son's funeral, it fell flat among fans. It was deemed by many as inappropriate and even revolting by the weighty, emotional content of the show. But it did not end there. Kody kept shining a light on his own place in Garrison's life and demise. He spoke of being the first to cradle Garrison as an infant, and now, years later, the one to bring his son's ashes home to bury. To some, such details sounded genuine sorrow. To others, it was a last-ditch attempt to rebuild his tarnished public image as a father. That tension between authentic bereavement and staged performance governed much of the audience's discomfort. The fans also started wondering about the timeline of the scenes. They were integrating what seemed to be more than a year's worth of old scenes in the most recent episodes. One second, Kody was in an upset and grief-stricken mood. The next, he was giggling over ice cream and having a family fun time with Robyn and the kids in what seemed to be a vacation montage. Of course, grief is complicated. People grieve differently. Perhaps for Robyn and Kody, this is healing. Perhaps laughter is how they remember, how they survive. But for some viewers, the emotional whiplash was too much, particularly when, again and again, Robyn was comforting Kody, but seldom expressing her own grief or talking about Garrison explicitly. Each time she spoke of him, fans felt it was more about Kody than the missing son. Some accused her of attempting to mend Kody's blackened reputation as a father, not truly honoring Garrison's memory. The perception that these moments were being overproduced or even fabricated started to gain traction. Online speculation was ablaze. Did Kody have final cut power over his scenes? Were the beats in the show constructed to sweeten public opinion of him? We know reality TV isn't entirely real, but this didn't feel the same. This felt manufactured, and people picked up on it. Viewers contend that if this is part of an image restoration campaign, it's failing. Actually, it could be having the reverse effect. Instead of inspiring sympathy, Kody and Robyn's actions during these shows appear to be heightening the resentment and distrust of longtime viewers. It's difficult to view a family mourning on television, more so when it appears that branding takes precedence over remembering. Whether that is true or not, Sister Wives is now irreversibly something more than a plural marriage show. It's become a snapshot of fraying relationships, public accountings, and intimate loss, aired on a national stage.